outbound 20. Inbound Eisenhower, 30 minutes, 390 to downtown, with a delay from Manheim to 17th. Outbound, looking at 32 minutes to 390. Stop and go St. Charles to York, where there's a crash. Stevenson, 29 minutes, 355 to Lakeshore Drive. Ryan is 17 minutes from 95th to downtown. I-57, 16 minutes, ID to the merge. Bishop Ford, 13. That's traffic. I'm Jim Talamonte on AM 560, The Answer.
More of Chicago's Morning Answer continues. Now your official Chicagoland weather forecast. It's going to be a cloudy day, much cooler with a thunderstorm in spots, breezy this afternoon. High temperature 74 degrees. It's going to be partly cloudy tonight. Will dip down to 61. Pleasant tomorrow, mixture of clouds and sun. High temperature 74 degrees. Right now it's 68 degrees. Your next news update in 30 minutes. For continuous coverage of the latest news, traffic, and weather, go to 560theanswer.com. I'm Elisa Z. Now more of Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560, The Answer.
Listen to AM 560, The Answer, online at 560theanswer.com, on the AM 560 mobile app, and your Alexa-powered smart speaker, on TuneIn, iHeart, and radio.com. If you're looking for the latest news, insight into what it means, and the sharpest opinion, there's only one station in Chicago where you can turn, and it's this one. We're AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. If you thought the histrionics at the House Judiciary Committee hearing featuring Attorney General Barr sitting there to be screamed at were really quite something to behold, then you'll really enjoy the room temperature offerings of House Majority Whip Jim Clyburn on with Dana Bash over the weekend on CNN State of the Union. He had this to say about President Trump in defense of his previous comparison of Trump to Adolf Hitler.
Do you really think Donald Trump is comparable to Adolf Hitler?
What I said starting about 2.5, maybe 3 years ago after one of his State of the Unions, that I feel very strongly that this man has taken on a strong-arm tactics. And I feel very strongly that he is Mussolini, Putin is Hitler. I said that back then, and I believe that.
She is Mussolini, Putin is Hitler, and Trump is, I don't know. Who's Trump in this
trio?
This Animal Farm-esque metaphor that Clyburn is using, but he's still speaking of the three gentlemen in the same sentence, isn't he? There's an excellent piece by Anthony Esselin, who only writes excellent pieces. He's an academic with whom, if you're not familiar with, I should say, you should become familiar with him. He calls to mind how you can, in discerning how you can determine if somebody has fascism in their heart. Elio Vittorni's novel Conversations in Sicily, as well as Solzhenitsyn's Cancer Ward. And he reminds us what Benito Mussolini said of fascism, although didn't define it as such, but his approach to his dictatorship. Quote, everything within the state, nothing outside the state, nothing against the state. In other words, everything must be swallowed up in politics. Nothing must be permitted to enjoy a non-political or pre-political or beyond political existence. Not even language, not even the names of towns and villages could escape the hand of fascist politics in Mussolini's Italy. Who does that sound like today in America? Everything swallowed up in politics. Nothing must be permitted to enjoy a non-political or pre-political or beyond political existence, not even the language, not even names of towns or villages or sports teams. He goes on to offer a bit of a checklist. How can you tell if you have the soul of a fascist? Here, Vittorini and Solzhenitsyn provide some instruction. Do you watch others to find fault? Do you seek occasion for enmity? Do you believe the personal is the political? Do you speak evil of people behind their backs? Do you enjoy perhaps too much being part of a political movement? Do you believe that political urgency absolves you of ordinary human duties, such as the duty to protect your enemy's good name or the duty to be loyal to a friend? I would add, how about the duty to be honest? Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's famous incantation I don't have to be technically correct because I'm morally correct? Do you expose other people to opprobrium? Do you act as if every decent person must believe as you and your comrades believe and say what you say? Do you enjoy having other people live under a reign of terror where one false step can cost them their livelihood? Boy, these questions should be put to a whole host of people, starting with the members of Congress, starting with many of those Democrat socialists on the House Judiciary Committee, I'd suggest. For more on this, we're pleased to be joined by Congressman Ken Buck, Republican from Colorado, member of the House Judiciary and House Foreign Affairs Committees, author of the upcoming book, Capital of Freedom. Representative Buck, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
That was some performance your colleagues put on with Attorney General Barr. I understand, and I think most people who've watched these committees before understand committee hearings are mostly an occasion for speechifying from the members of Congress. But
I take back my time.
Well, reclaiming my time.
Reclaiming my time.
It wasn't so much the speechifying; it was the hysterics, wasn't it?
Well, I think it was sad. I think what really happened was the Democrats didn't want to hear the answers. They wanted to give a speech, and they wanted to make sure that their time ran out, and didn't give the Attorney General an opportunity to be heard on the issues they were concerned about. And the Attorney General, when he did explain, I thought really was a class act and presented a strong case for the actions that he took. And frankly, I think that there was a lot of sympathy for the Attorney General going in and being treated the way he was and acting the way he did. I think there was a clear winner in that hearing, and it was Attorney General Barr.
Yeah, probably not the guy trying to prevent him from taking a 5-minute bathroom break. That's probably not a good position to take.
Well, clearly, Chairman Nadler was not a sympathetic figure, and he hasn't been a sympathetic figure, whether it's been in the impeachment hearings or other parts of the judiciary history in the last year and a half. But I do think that the Barr time period as Attorney General has been a very clear and straightforward time period. You mentioned fascism and the really, if there is a group, this Attorney General has done his very best to make sure we are protecting federal property, for example, and making sure that federal agents are out there protecting property when the mayors of these large cities will not do that.
Yeah. Well, Congressman, do you think anything was accomplished during that hearing?
I think I don't think the Democrats accomplished what they sought to accomplish, was to paint the Attorney General in a bad light. I do think that the Attorney General is not a very public figure in a lot of ways. I think he came off in a very measured and professional way, and I think that was important for the American people to know that their law enforcement is in good hands.
There's been definitely a more public response from congressional Republicans to the violence and the rioting on the streets of big cities than there has been to the attacks on Trump and Republicans in general, attacks like Jamie Raskin offered over the weekend, that the GOP policy on COVID-19 is tantamount to human sacrifice. Does there need to be more full-throated response from Republicans and education by Republicans and framing by Republicans to the in response to the histrionics from congressional Democrats and the Biden campaign on COVID-19 and what we should do on a go-forward basis? It seems like they're doing a good job of smearing Republicans, and Republicans aren't doing a particularly good job of locking down exactly where Democrats are in terms of what they would do, what they want to do right now, and broadcasting that.
Yeah, and I think we always have a problem as Republicans of having access to the same liberal media that the Democrats have. So their message obviously wrong. The lead in the economic shutdown in this country, the lead in the response to this COVID-19 pandemic are the governors of America. President Trump has led the way in terms of funding for businesses that are shut down, unemployment benefits, research for vaccines and other medical healthcare issues. But the bottom line, when you look at the shutdowns of the economy, it happens from governors. And to suggest that President Trump is responsible for any death is just really poor politics and unfortunate.
And how does a cancel culture, take part in have a role in this upcoming election?
It's a great question. The question that I answer in the book, and I think it's an important book because I think it's so clear that American history and respecting American history is what created this great country. And if we look back to history, we will find the answers that we need to continue to go forward. And the cancel culture, I think there will be a reaction to the cancel culture, and I believe it's happening right now, and it's happening in a way that many pollsters can identify, just like they couldn't identify President Trump's victory before. But the idea that looting is okay, that the police are being withdrawn from parts of city to allow looting and arson is something that people just won't tolerate.
There's a state rep in Illinois, in Chicago, who's introduced the notion of stopping history classes this fall until and unless there is more representation of the accomplishments of minority and women in the history books, I guess, or in history instruction. How do you respond to that approach?
Well, I think we've seen that movement now for 40, 50 years, and I think we have excellent representation in our history books, and we absolutely should celebrate accomplishments by all Americans, and we should also understand the flaws that our founders and other leaders have had in this country. But it doesn't mean we should deny history. We need to learn from our history, but to not celebrate the fact that this country is the greatest country on earth, the most prosperous country, the freest country, is really sad, because people won't understand that our freedoms going forward are based on the great accomplishments of our historical figures.
I guess your book, Capital of Freedom, probably won't make it onto the many syllabuses, syllabi. Will it, do you expect? I mean, to me, it seems like, this is a good example where Rory's on defense. I mean, eliminate history class. Chicago is like ground zero for the 1619 narrative fiction, historical fiction about this country's history as part of their curriculum, in addition to using Howard Zinn and other left-wing tracks as history books for these history courses. In fact, conservatives have ceded the entirety of K through 12 education, with the exception of a few private school operations and charter school operations in this country. And now you have, this is a rush to the left, as you're not enough of a cultural Marxist. So all of the cultural Marxists in charge of the Chicago public school system and the Illinois school system, for example, and it's just an example because you could replicate it in almost every other state, they already control everything. And now the running to daylight that politicians on the left see is to go further than that. It's not far enough. And I just, again, the response from conservatives and people who understand the importance of the foundations of this country, the importance of civic education, the importance of a classical liberal education at both the high school, but the K through 12 as well as collegiate level, I just don't think the response meets the urgency of the moment. Do you?
I think that there certainly could be a stronger response. I think that there could be a more balanced presentation in the media, because frankly, the media is not interested in learning from our history. But the one thing that I talk about in the book that I think is so interesting is that all around us we see the evidence of history. And yet to go where the Marxists, the socialists want to take us, they have to deny what they see all around them. If you walk in the Capitol, you see all these statues, and you hear the stories of what happened in the Capitol, things that make us great. Where Abraham Lincoln sat as a member of the House, the fundamental freedoms that we have that frankly the Marxists are trying to go backwards with. They're trying to revert to a government control system, which is exactly what we revolted from. And it's the only reason why the Marxists feel we have to deny our history, is so that they can go back and gain more control.
Your a former colleague, now White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, saying that the two sides, meaning the Trump administration, Senate Republicans, and congressional Democrats, not close on a COVID-19 Phase 4 relief package, in part because of the disagreement over how much enhanced unemployment benefits should be provided, what the number is going to be. Where are you on all matters COVID-19 relief related?
Well, I have sponsored a bill called the Getting Americans Back to Work Act, which does it makes sure that we don't pay anyone more in unemployment benefits than they would make if they were working. This idea that we should pay people $600 more to not work is a disincentive to work, and I have many businesses in Colorado who have business leaders who have talked to me about the fact that they're having trouble getting people back to work. So if we're intending to get our economy up and running again, we don't do that by disincentivizing work.
And in Colorado, Jared Polis has been given credit as one of the few Democrat governors to actually move for reopening sort of around the same time that a lot of Republican governors that are being roundly criticized moved. What's your assessment of your home state governor's response to the outbreak?
Well, I think there was an overreaction as there was in so many places. The reality in Colorado was we never got to the point of using 70-80% of the ventilators in Colorado, and yet the state government was ordering thousands and thousands more ventilators, and the same is true with putting people back to work. People here want to go back to work, and they are being held back from that in a lot of ways. We're going to see a lot of restaurants and other retail businesses go out of business as a result of this. The clear strategy, I think, that's been employed in other countries that is successful is to protect those who are at risk and to let those who are not at risk go back to work. If they get this disease, make sure that we are testing and make sure that we are supporting them. But you can't shut down an economy for much longer and be able to have the resources we need to fight this disease.
And are your schools going to reopen and universities?
Right now they are not. And again, that's a huge problem. And it's something that I think the left is underestimating the significance, and really plays into the idea that we are going to have more inequality down the road. There are the wealthier, higher economic status individuals are going to be able to continue their education, in some cases better than if they were going to the public schools. And the lower economic children living in a lower economic family are going to really suffer as a result of closing schools. So I think it really backfires in so many ways.
He is Congressman Ken Buck, Republican from Colorado, the home state to a lot of Illinois transplants, and the future home state of many Illinois residents that are looking to move. Ken Buck, Republican from Colorado, member of House Judiciary and House Foreign Affairs Committees, and author of the upcoming book, which releases tomorrow, Capital of Freedom. Representative Buck, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Before you see it on TV, share it on Facebook, or read about it in the paper, hear it here first. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
If you are selling your home and purchasing a new home within the next year, call Team Hochberg, your trusted local lender. Today, meet Mike, divorced, 3 kids living in a $250,000 home. Mike wanted to move within the next 12 months, so he called Team Hochberg for a free consultation. Team Hochberg helped Mike pay off $40,000 of debt, which increased his score 70 points and saved him $1,300 a month. Let's review. Before calling Team Hochberg, Mike was loaded with debt and could not afford a new home. After calling Team Hochberg, Mike eliminated his debt, enhanced